Well, folks, the walls are closing in on Gaza, quite literally, it would seem. Um, we had already reached a point many months ago where Israel had pushed the population of Gaza down into a smaller area in the southern half. Most of the population was in the northern half, and they successfully rooted out pretty much the entirety of the population of Gaza City and the surrounding areas, pushed them down into Rafah. And then now we've been talking about for a long time Israel's impending, siege of Rafah, which is the only place that has people left. Well, now Israel has announced that they're going to be creating a buffer zone, which is not surprising. But the buffer zone is not on the Israeli side of the border with Gaza. They're going to go into Gaza and take a 1 kilometer strip of land around the entire border to set up military installations. And so this will look kind of like, I guess, what was the, I get the Elbe River, kind of like the DDR with the Elbe River. They had that big wide strip, like the kill zone. You run across there, they're going to shoot at you. You're not getting through there. But they've got barbed wire and tank traps and all those sorts of things. Fortifications, a sort of a Siegfried line or a Maginot line, whichever analogy you prefer to make, French or German. Because currently, I believe, Israel just has a very tall fence along the border with Gaza, but this will make many layers. It's a 1 kilometer wide wall, essentially. And so, obviously, this means that anyone living within 1 kilometer of Israel, which would be a lot because Gaza is so skinny, 1 kilometer into Gaza, apparently, according to antiwar.com's math, I think it might have come from the Wall Street Journal, and I can't use the Wall Street Journal for anything because they're paywalled. But antiwar.com summarizing what the Wall Street Journal apparently found, this would account for about 16% of the landmass of Gaza, which really just puts into perspective just how dinky and minute geographically Gaza is. It's an absurdly small area. It's it's absolutely dwarfed by Israel, which itself is one of the smallest countries on earth, pretty much. There's a bunch of small countries, sure, but Israel, they're definitely on that list of very tiny countries. They are, as American Zionists like to remind us so often, the size of New Jersey. I think of Florida as being really skinny and thin, and then you put a map of Israel over a map of Florida, and you realize, oh wow, Florida ain't that skinny. And then you do the same with Gaza. You look at Gaza right next to Israel. It's infinitesimally small. And so, no matter how small of a slice you take, it's going to end up being a substantial chunk. Now, heretofore, the Israelis have not announced any plans to annex Gaza City, though Gaza City has been depopulated and almost certainly will not be allowed to be repopulated anytime soon. Some people are saying that Israel is cutting Gaza in half because they're constructing a road that runs right down the middle. And Israel will control this road. It will be purely for them to use for security purposes, I believe. And so what Israel's trying to ensure here is that there is no corner of Gaza that is out of their reach. And all this is coming before the seizure of Rafah, or the siege of Rafah. I'm not exactly sure if they're actually going to seize the city, with a Z, but they do plan on sieging it with a G. I think there are some 2,100 homes, they said, that happen to be in the path of this buffer zone, all of which are going to be demolished, and so that is 2,100 families, at least, who are going to be made homeless just by the buffer zone thing, let alone all the people who've already been made homeless because they were driven from Gaza City and will never be allowed back. After all, if the IDF planned on letting these people back into their homes, I doubt that the soldiers would be going through, the ladies' lingerie drawers, staging panty raids, and trying on their bras for pictures. I somehow just don't associate that with the Palestinians being allowed to return to their homes. I don't know. I could be wrong. Hope I'm wrong. But bravo to the IDF, I guess, for not doing that if they end up letting these people back in their homes. But I highly doubt that these people are going to ever be allowed to return home. I think they're all going to be confined to Rafah indefinitely, just as they were people, decades ago were confined to Gaza indefinitely. The reason why the Gaza population is so dense is because the people who now live in Gaza, their parents and grandparents came from all across what is now Israel, because they were, wait for it, driven from their homes. I think I'm detecting a pattern here. And so it's pretty easy to see why the average citizen in Gaza has absolutely no trust in the Israeli government and would like to see nothing more than for them to fail and suffer. I mean, you could not do more to make a people your enemy than what Israel has done over the last 3 or 4 generations to the people who now live in Gaza, or I should say, who now live in Rafah. Gaza as it was is pretty much over. We're going to have to redraw that map. It's only a matter of time. And, frankly, at this point, the Israelis would be stupid not to. Gaza City is, prime for redevelopment at this point. And I don't say that with glee. I'm not cheering on the destruction of this city, these people being driven, into abject poverty, living in tents. But they've ripped the Band-Aid off. That part's over. And so I think that the push, once the buffer zone is attached, is that slowly, perhaps, there will be Israelis coming in to just sort of clean up the rubble. And those people will start, kind of settling down little by little, and then maybe their families will come along too. And then before you know it, you have these little, small community of people in Gaza, Israelis, who are cleaning up the rubble in this security zone of Gaza City. Everything north of this new road, which is going to bisect Gaza, but yet will be inside the buffer zone of the IDF. Perhaps there will even be a second buffer zone along this middle highway in order to keep people who are now in Rafah out of the former Gaza City. I mean, all these things are pretty straightforward from here. To borrow a meme from Sally Cohn, boy, there's a blast from the past. I bet you haven't heard that name in close to a decade. In fact, I think it wouldn't have been quite a decade. It was, what was that? Was that 2016? The straightforward from here meme? Anyway, I think historically this will be a very interesting set of events to watch unfold, because we are seeing the birth of a new sort of demilitarized zone, the kind of which at this stage exists only in a couple places on Earth, between India and Pakistan, in Kashmir, and between North and South Korea, and formerly it existed between East and West Germany. And so Israel seems to be, and honestly, I'm surprised they didn't do this already a long time ago, considering how much they consider Gaza to be a problem for them, how much trouble they've had, just objectively. you would think that the Gaza-Israel border would have been one of these places on Earth that was heavily militarized. I never quite understood why they're called demilitarized zones. Is it because there is some kind of buffer area where neither military has, any presence, and it's just sort of a nature preserve or something, and so therefore both of them build up their militaries very heavily just outside of that buffer zone. So maybe a demilitarized zone is not a good term to describe. Maybe line of control. I think that's what they call it in Kashmir. And of course, in Germany, you just called it the Elbe River. So with that said, I will see you folks back here on the next one.